Hope you guys enjoy your quick 10 minutes break and be ready with your next session in the track. Um, Let me know in the chat if you want maybe a couple more minutes. We can still wait. And if not, we can kick off at 11:30 sharp IST.
Folks, if you're back in the session, could you maybe put an emoji on chat or unmute and say hi,
Yeah.
or maybe give me a reaction saying you're back? Had it been a physical thing, I would have asked you to stretch your arms and legs, but I think this is what we can do.
Yeah. All right. So I think we can kick off as like people are saying yes to it.
People are
All right.
okay. I'm not able to see reactions, so
Oh yeah.
uh,
If I take silence as yes.
you take silence as yes. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I think, guys, before I give it to Rohit to rock on here, I would say, I mean, it's my job to just introduce him, of course, as a part of my do's and don'ts, right? So yes, so Rohit Gulati is really an awesome, guy. I have been known on this identity engineering team. I'm not too much connected with him on to the security side, but I do more of SharePoint. So that's how I've been hearing name from him, from like our community member in India. We always wanted to have one session at least from him onto our different user group, but never nest. This is the time that we get it on security. So yes, that's the background. And then I think he's a principal product manager in identity engineering team at Microsoft in the career of spanning 19 years. Right, you heard it right, 19 years across three continents. He has worked with leadership and enterprise architects at Fortune 500 enterprises, like including Big Four advisory partners and GSIs and whatnot. And I think in his current role, he works too closely with customers and probably get that understanding, empathize with them and, and understand what's going on and how we can really, help it with this experience. So I'm equally excited as the audience to hear from him on this topic. And I think that's called building trust into digital experience with Entra Verified ID. Please correct Rohit if I am anywhere wrong.
No, thank you, Lalit. Thank you for introducing me. Good day, folks. Hope you had a good kickstart of this event. Um, my name is Rohit Gulati. I'm a principal product manager in Microsoft. So I'll walk you through a bunch of slides in my talk and explain what this verified ID is. But let me start by sharing the most important slide. I guess each one of us do some or the other part when it comes to giving back to the community. So please, it's a great initiative under Project Give India. Hum padhao, hame padhao. So please do look at this opportunity and contribute and donate generously. If you have not, please do. If you can share it with your friends, please do. So with that, let me start by giving a quick background on verified ID, what it can do, what is this all about, and what is Entra. I think a lot of us are hearing this new thing from Microsoft called Entra. I see this is a very close group. I would say a cozy group. So please don't shy away from unmuting, coming on video. I'm not the only one in the call, so let's make it like a collaborative session. I have 56 minutes available to me. I can do my regular thing of doing a PowerPoint and demo and get done with it. but I think it's for you all to get to know more about me and the product. So please take this as an opportunity to interact with me during the session. So let's look at what this offering is all about and why I got into this. So I'm wearing the same Joy Division shirt. I thought I'll start by setting this stage of why I'm so excited about this product. Uh, Microsoft has been in this decentralized space for more than 5 years, and it is the offering where uh, a, a, a lot of things change around the user. And when I said change around the user in this verified ID offering, user owns and controls the identity, which is very different from what we have been doing in our regular space. But then what is Entra? What is this new brand name called Entra? Uh, See, when you look at identity and access management solutions, uh, most of the providers, including Microsoft, we will have an offering where you create an identity provider and you will uh, provision accounts for your users. So that is more inward looking. What do you mean by inward looking? You create an account for a user, and that user will have access to the apps that are provisioned by the provider. So that's what I meant by inward looking. Entra is an entry to an external world. Think of an environment where you're not looking at building trust internally, but you're also making sure the trust is available externally. What does this mean? What I just explained, building outward trust. So let's look at what Entra does today. So Entra is our new product name. It is not one product, it's a family of products. I think most of you in the call would know Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory is Microsoft's hero cloud identity and access management offering in a centralized setup. But there are two more other products in the family. Uh, then there is a product called permissions management, which is Microsoft's multi-cloud permissions management solution. So if you are running resources on AWS, Google, Azure, can I do permissions management on that? That is permissions management. And verified ID, which is what we will talk today, is a decentralized solution. Uh, Now, if you look at the whole portfolio, Azure Active Directory is centralized. Then you have multi-cloud, and then you have a decentralized. That's why I said it's a family of products, not one, but it is also making sure that you can build outward trust. Now let's look at what do I mean by outward trust, and we'll do a double click of on verified ID. If you look at this diagram, I'm the person who is smiling in the center. When I work from 9 to 5 during a weekday, I get my account from Microsoft Directory, and I can access apps which are available to me by my application provider. But when I look at my life after 5 p.m., I may be uh, booking some travel ticket. Or what would I do? I would actually, in that scenario, maybe use my Google ID, Facebook ID, or some local account ID from that travel website. And then I will do my access on that particular app. Maybe I'll also do a financial transaction at my bank. Maybe I'll go to a gym, and gym may offer me a membership account and loyalty program. Maybe I may do some skilling program at EDX or Coursera. And there too, I have a different account and ID. So as a user, I'm going through multiple user persona in a single given day. But it's the same person going through multiple scenarios. If you look at this kind of a model, if I ask you, hey Rohit, in the last 5 days, can you tell me how many such websites that you have browsed across multiple user accounts and passwords? It will be very difficult for you to tell me what are those websites, what's the count of those websites. If I tell you, can you tell me there was a hack on that website? Were you on that website at that particular day? You won't be able to tell me that. So if you look at this whole model, it is inward looking. Each of the block or the cloud that you see in the diagram is giving you an entity or an identity. In a decentralized world, we talk about the outward model, which means user owns and controls their identity. They get to the application. They get to choose what they are presenting to the application. And using that model, they can easily, transparently see what they are presenting, what they have received. If they want to do an audit history on their own, they can do that as well. So that is decentralized identity. It is not a Microsoft term. It is it's a community term. Uh, and decentralized identity is not the name of a technology. It's a pattern. It's a framework. It's a framework where user owns and controls their own identity. Now let's go one level below and deep into this. How does that differ from an centralized identity model? Or what does it mean and how does it work? In a centralized identity model, you will have an identity provider. You will create a single sign-on configuration with an application. Now, if a user goes to an application, user will be redirected to the identity provider. User will authenticate against the identity provider, get an identity token and access token, and then bring back that token to the application. Application, since it has a line of sight to the identity provider, it can easily decrypt that token and then can give access to the user. So in a centralized model, there is a single sign-on configuration you have done, federation, single sign-on, but there is a line of sight between identity provider and application. In a decentralized model, there is no such line of sight. In a centralized model, since there is a line of sight, when a user accesses an application, user can be easily traced by the centralized system because it gave a token for a particular application. So it knows where you are using your token. In a decentralized model, it's all privacy preserving. As an issuer of a credential, I don't know where you are using the credential. So keep these high level bullets in mind and let's do a double click. I see some folks who have reacted, so I'm guessing that folks are following me on that. But if there is a comment or a question, please do it. This diagram is the most important diagram to explain the concept. So in a decentralized verifiable credential ecosystem, we always talk about three actors. There's an actor called issuer, there's an actor called user, and there's an actor called verifier. If you look at the way this diagram has been laid, user is always in the middle. In a centralized system, it is the identity provider that is in the middle. Now, coming back to this diagram, user is in the middle. There's an entity called issuer. There's an entity called verifier. You can see for each of the entity, there is something called or represented in the diagram called key. So in the decentralized model, it's a cryptographic operation model. Each of the actor gets their pair of keys, pair of asymmetric keys, public key, private key, public key, private key, public key, private key. So as a user, and I'll explain it using an example. Let's say I'm a user employed at Woodgrove and I need my proof of employment so that I can get to a laptop ordering website or Amazon or Fabricam and get some discounts. Usually what that provider would do, they will set up federations and they know, hey, you're coming from Woodgrove, you're coming from Microsoft. I have a alliance with them. I have a federation, so I can give you discount. In a decentralized model, there is no such federation, as I said. So how would this model work when they have to offer discounts to Woodgrove employees? So let's look at that. So as a user, first of all, I need to get my proof of employment credential. So I go to Woodgrove and ask Woodgrove, hey Woodgrove, can you give me my proof of employment credential? So Woodgrove needs to first attest you that you are the right Rohit. As a issuer, I can say, hey, authenticate against my directory. If you are able to successfully authenticate, I know who you are. That's one way of attestation. The other way of attestation could be, hey, can you do identity proofing? Can you take a selfie, upload your government document, and once the identity proofing is done, I know who you are. There could be another way of attesting you. Like I'll send you an OTP. If you supply back the same OTP, I know who you are. So Woodgrove as an organization can do any of the three attestation model or a combination of that. So let's say I was attested by Woodgrove. In response, I received this black credential. If you look at some of the highlights, it says it is issued by Woodgrove. It is issued to, subject line is important. That this credential is only meant for Rohit, not for Lalit or not for anybody else. It has a bunch of data related to Rohit, and it is cryptographically signed by the issuer's private key. Now, when you sign something using a private key, you need to make sure your public key is available at a known location so that others can use it. So if you see the diagram, Woodgrove has published its public key material on a trust system. Now, this trust system could be based on blockchain. It may be non-blockchain like web servers. So it publishes its public key material on a trust system. Now, as a user, I have received my proof of employment credential. Now I am ready to go to that discount offering model. I will go to Fabricam and say, hey, Fabricam, can you give me this laptop with a discount? Fabricam can then throw a challenge saying, show me that you are employed at Woodgrove. And if you now see the second flow, there's an extra line. Subject has also signed this credential. So subject is behaving like an identity provider. It has signed it using private key. Now as Fabricam, when I receive this credential, I see this is a cryptographically signed credential. I need to get the public key material from the trust system, do a public key private key match, and when the FGP flow is successful, I will check, are you giving me an active credential, expired credential, or a revoked credential? And if I'm able to successfully test that, then I will accept the credential. And then when I accept the credential, I'll take the data from that credential and then apply my business logic. So I'll take a pause here. If anybody has a question or a reaction, maybe please put on a chat or ask me a question. But this is the most important diagram. There's nothing Microsoft apart from the logo on the slide. This is it's a industry pattern, how a verifiable credential system would work. Okay, I didn't get any reaction, so let me explain a little bit now on technology. I've been talking about keys. In a decentralized ecosystem, as I said, there are three actors. Each of the actor gets an identifier. So when you hear a term called DID, it is not decentralized identity, but decentralized identifier. Okay, I think somebody has their hand up. Yes, could
Yeah,
you, yeah,
sure, sure. So I was talking on the mute earlier. So my question was, what happens is, say, now you said Woodgrove has issued me a credential. Tomorrow there is no Woodgrove at all. So the example, the company has shut down or whatever. So what
mhm.
happens to the credentials? Do they still be intact, or what happens to the public key of that?
Great question, great question. So, and always compare this question within a centralized world. In a centralized world, when Woodgrove goes out of the business, that means my identity provider doesn't exist. So that means the username password that was given to me by my centralized system doesn't mean anything. It is gone. In a decentralized world, even if Woodgrove is down or not available, the
Mhm.
public key material is available on the trust system. Now, when the user goes to Fabricam to present their credential, at that time, Fabricam can see, do I see a public key record for Woodgrove in a trust system? If that public key record has not been tampered, because as I'm going out of the business, I
Okay.
might I might say I want to remove my public key material also from the trust system. If I remove my public key material also from the trust system, that means that credential is no longer valid. But if the public key material is intact, on the trust system, then
Okay,
I can use that credential.
got it.
Okay. But great question. And you can easily relate to today when there is a network outage and your directory server is not available,
Hmm.
you cannot access applications. Here, if there's a network outage, we don't care because the trust system is globally available. It can be blockchain, it can be non-blockchain. So these are some of the benefits that you would see with decentralized systems.
Thank you.
Great, good start. So let's look at a little bit more, and now let's do a double click. I'm gonna talk about some demos, do some explanation, talk about the APIs, and I would want you to take a takeaway from my talk that you all can build solutions in 10 minutes after this. So all of I just explained, as I said, it's based on open standards. Uh, I will not go deep into protocols, but you need to know that the, the reason of making it based on open standards allows us to be interoperable. So you can be using any OpenID Connect provider to get claims for a user. You can use any type of apps that understand the same protocols and so on. So there are multiple objects that you see in the diagram. There's a thing called user agent in the middle. So in the previous diagram, user had received a card. They stored that card in their smartphone app. That app is called as a wallet, and that specification is called as user agent. When user is interacting with an issuer or a verifier, they use OpenID Connect flows, and that is called as self-issued OpenID. It is coming from OpenID Connect Foundation. When the user received a black card, how the card should look like, what kind of data should it go in the card, that is coming from a standard called W3C verifiable credential. Each of the actor, as I said, gets an identifier. So DID is not decentralized identity. DID is decentralized identifier coming from trust system to each of the actor. That's also a specification. The card that you saw and it has data in it, that is called as verifiable credential. So please do remember these terms very clearly. I see a lot of people using these terms interchangeably. So DID is the identifier that is available to an actor. Verifiable credential is the data set. Like think of your driving license. When you get a driving license, it has data like your first name, last name, address, DL number. Think of that as a verifiable credential in the physical world. And it is assigned to a number that is your DID. Now, Fabricam had to go and do a lookup of the public key material. How does it do the lookup? Who can help that actor? There's a component called resolver. Think of it like a DNS server in the DID world. Identity Hub is a new concept that is coming up. Like, let's say I do not have a wallet, but I want to store my credential on a share that could be a cloud share, a laptop share, a desktop share. Then I can use that share to post my credential for some time and I can give delegated access to application. This is a new concept coming up and implementers will implement it in future. But this diagram or vision is a North Star vision of open standards. We've implemented these open standards in verified ID. How does this work? Uh, so from the Microsoft side, we have built a platform called Verified ID that is using systems that can allow you to become an issuer or a verifier, or you can do both. So let's see how does this work. I'm going to do a demo. And I'll do a scenario based demo and then we'll do a very crude demo how to build this system. So I'm going to bring my browser with a website and think about a scenario. So I'm going to start by calling out a scenario. Let's say an employee onboarding scenario. I'll also do a phone mirroring so that you can see the live experience. Think of how you got hired into your organization. When I got hired into my company, I was told by HR, hey, Rohit, can you do a bunch of onboarding online tasks? Can you also send me a set of scan copies of the document? And then I was told, can you, when you come to office on day one, can you get a photocopy of your passport? I I did submit my photocopy. I don't know what has happened to that photocopy. But then when I came to office, my manager helped me get access to a system. Then for the first few weeks, I was going through uh, like accessing benefits, getting myself into groups and teams. And then in the background, HR is also struggling. They're also doing, because I'm a notorious guy, they were doing background verification about me. And then they were checking where was I employed. So both parties were going through this trouble of onboarding verification. And it took both parties 2 to 3 weeks to settle down. Should onboarding be that difficult? Can I not do it in minutes instead of doing weeks and months? So I'm going to show you that demo. So I'm giving you a scenario. So think of any type of onboarding scenario. You can easily do it with verifiable credential. So think of the same scenario of onboarding. So Woodgrove is employing me. Woodgrove told me, hey Rohit, you have to do a bunch of onboarding tasks. Please submit some data points on the link. So when I click on on this website and submit my first name and last name, the application is telling me, hey Rohit, I would like you to do identity proofing. Remember the issuer scenario I said. The issuer is saying, I need to know who you are. Can you click and do identity proofing? And this could be done within few minutes by just submitting few clicks. So application is saying, hey, take a selfie, blink your eyes, smile, upload a government document, and then submit. So there are some 10 identity proofing partners with whom Microsoft has done integration, but we can work with any identity proofing partner globally. So what happened? The application verified me in minutes and seconds, and it is telling me, hey Rohit, we have done your identity proofing. By the way, would you like to accept an acknowledgement of your identity proofing? By the way, you need to also supply a PIN, because it should not be that you submitted your document and somebody else came and scanned the QR code. So please supply this PIN for remote security or remote sign-in process. So all I did, I scanned and I supplied the PIN, and then I will let this whole process come. I think this guy also needs some coffee. It's a demo website, so come on. Um, and what should happen once this process completes? It should actually give me a credential. Come on. You don't need a coffee like me. All right, I think let's just click on one more time and try to accept this. All right. So what has happened in this flow? I received this blue card, and if you see, I double clicked on the card, and you can see it has a bunch of data about me. Where is the data coming from? This data was picked up from the government document that I have uploaded. It did an OCR scan. It used Azure Cognitive Services and gave me a blue card as an acknowledgement. So I can go back to Woodgrove and I can show it to Woodgrove that, yeah, I have done my identity proofing. So the same application, step one was an assure. Now the third step is becoming like a verifier. It's saying, hey Rohit, can you show me that you have done your identity proofing by scanning this QR code? So I as a user, and now I as a user is participating in this journey. Remember that I was explaining that flow diagram. I was told, can I show my proof of identity credential? So I can see, oh, this is the latest one. I just scanned this and I can click on confirm and I can present that to the application. Now, when I did this whole show, the application took that credential, did a public key match, checked it's an active credential, and say, yeah, I verify you. You can continue onboarding. By the way, I took some data from your credential. I can take this data and put it into HR system. Today, the recruiter will type this manually. I can supply this data in a verified way from a system which is automated. So I submitted this data into HR system, and then using my connectors, this data can go to Azure Active Directory or any directory and create a username password for this person. And it's happening in the background. But I was able to onboard in few seconds. And the application is saying, by the way, Rohit, do you need a digital version of your employee card? If you want that, you can scan this QR code and accept a credential. By the way, your employee ID is 2070. Today, I have to wait for my manager to tell all these details to me. So all I'm doing is scanning a QR code, supplying some data points, and I'm able to accept a credential. Now, when I would accept this credential, I think the application would tell me, hey Rohit, now you have a verified employee credential. This is your employee ID, and your department is customer relations, and your title is program manager. So you can see I've got now two such cards, an identity card and an employment card. I can now that use that card to do a lot of interactions. Like I can go to a laptop ordering website. This website can say, I can offer you a Surface Pro at a discount if you show me that you are employed at Woodgrove. Traditionally, people will do federations. The new model, all I'm doing is scanning a QR code. So I'm scanning a QR code, presenting this credential. The application is saying, show me that you're a Woodgrove employee. I can present the latest employee credential and hit on confirm and click on share. So what has happened? I supplied my credential to Prosware. It'll check whether it's an active credential, expired credential, or revoked credential. And then basis that, it'll take a decision. So this is a very simple way of user interaction. I'm scanning a QR code and all I'm doing is presenting a credential and participating in the journey. You can easily build these kind of experiences. I can also show you another demonstration once this flow works. What if I have to, so here when I presented this credential, you can see the credential was verified and it took data and it accepted the details from it. What if I want the user to register to a system, a laboratory application system, and show me a bunch of credentials? So in this case, I want the application to ask the user who he or she is and where that person is employed. So I'm trying to show you some experiences. So the first one is proof of employment. I selected a credential. The second one is proof of identity. So you can easily build this kind of an experience. Now that was a HTML based, a beautiful website. Now this is a plain thing that I'm showing to you. I'm trying to give you that experience that you can easily build these experiences. When I click on share, so the credential was accepted and you can see there was some data that was picked up. My first name, last name was picked up from my identity credential and my department title was picked up from my employment credential. So it's very easy to build and construct such experiences. Now let's look at what are the fundamental components to it. So we used an application which was Authenticator in my case to accept or present a credential. Why we use Authenticator? Authenticator, all of us or most of us use it in our personal and professional life for multi-factor and passwordless scenarios. So we went with an application that is known to the user and we added a new component called wallet in it, the thing that I'm highlighting on my screen. Now, if you see the experience, I'm scanning a QR code. I'm able to see what I am getting. So it's a transparent behavior. I'm able to also look at the audit history. So if I go back to my wallet and click on a card, I can look at the activity report. When I got this credential, to whom I presented this, and I can see it was presented as, so I can look at the audit history of my own activity. Going back to the same hypothesis I was saying, can I tell you in the last 5 days how many websites I have browsed? Now I can tell you because I own my credential. I know where I have presented it. So that's an end user experience. To build this whole model, you need an interface where you can define how the card should look like, what should go in the card. So from the service side, we give a interface where you can define this definition that is called as schema or manifest. So you define the display and the rules for it. If you don't want to use the Azure portal for it, we have admin APIs, so you can use the same thing on your own custom control plane and create a contract, define how the card should look like, issue credentials, verify credentials. We also then offer client APIs. The experience that I was showing to you on Woodgrove or True Identity, when you clicked on a button, it showed a QR code. That is request API or client API. And on the end user side, we've embedded this experience in Authenticator app. But let's say if you want to build your own wallet, we've also open sourced that wallet component of Authenticator, and you can build your own wallet as well. So where you can use verified ID, you can use it for onboarding, which I showed you, like within seconds, you can onboard a user instead of waiting for weeks and months. You can also build scenarios where, let's say, you want to ensure that if someone comes to a compliance dashboard, they have completed a specific training, or they are 25 and above, or they are a resident of India. So if you want to build such kind of patterns where you want to look for an attestation which is not in a directory, but you want to pick up that attestation, a verified attestation about an individual, you can use a verifiable credential. You can also use it for account recovery scenarios. Like you can use your verifiable credential that was issued to you using your driving license to reset your enterprise password or jumpstart an MFA. Today, when you onboard a user to MFA, do you know if it was Rohit who went through that onboarding? In this verifiable credential journey, you can easily map that model. You can use it to generate temporary access pass as well. So you can build easy account recovery scenarios, and you can obviously build custom solutions around it too. So let's look at how this whole thing works. What I just showed to you, what it is. As I said, these are a bunch of APIs, authenticated APIs. I'll show you a quick demo using Postman. Uh, and then I'll explore this collection that I'm showing is available on GitHub as well. So you can get started in minutes, as I said. So as I said, it's an authenticated API. So I'll get the access token and I'll show you a quick flow. So when you remember, when I completed my identity proofing, it showed me a QR code. I scanned that QR code and I received a blue card. That's one API call. So I'm making an API call at this location with a specific payload, and this payload is coming to me from that cognitive services scan and OCR scan. So using Azure Cognitive Services, I can do Face API and all that, and then I can supply a bunch of data. When I make a call to the API with this payload, it sends me back a response. You can see in my payload, since this first line was said as include QR code is equal to true, the API came back with a response with QR code data image, and I'm able to generate a QR code. When I bring in my phone mirroring here, I can scan this QR code and I can easily accept this experience. So I can see now there is a black card and I can click on add to accept this card. What is there in the card? The data that I supplied in my payload, my first name, my display name, my email address, and my last name. So it's a simple one API call. Similarly, for presentation, I can simply call the API with a payload. So what I'm trying to show you is user clicked on a button to prove that they are employed and get a discount. When you click on that button, you're just making an API call to an endpoint that you configure on your tenant with a payload. And when I click on send to this, the response is coming. I can see there is a QR code. If you don't want to use the QR code library that we have used, you can use your own QR code library. If you remember the demo, there was a P alphabet in the QR code. So I can build an experience of asking a user a verifiable credential. I think I'm not showing my phone. So I'm asking the user to present verifiable credential interop expert card. I can click on confirm and I can click on share. So you can see it's easy to build this experience. It's just making an API call. Similarly, on the admin side, I'll just change the variables. I'll go back to my collection, and you can see there's an admin API. It's also an authenticated API. I'll authenticate and get the token. And now I can, if I don't want to do things like an admin on Azure portal, I can do the same thing using admin API. So get authorities is the admin command. When you click on the portal and see the list of issuers, I'm able to do the same task using admin API. In my setup, I can also see what, let's look at another one, contracts. So if you remember the card that I showed to you, it was a black card. It had a label called Interop Expert Workplace Credential. So I'll show you when I click on get contracts, that's the same thing on the admin side. So there is a credential by the time verifiable credential expert. You will, if I scroll down, there will be another credential for a different name. So you can easily build this kind of an experience on your control plane using admin API, or you can use your Azure portal. So that's on the admin API. But on the client API or the request API, you take this experience to the applications, become an issuer or become a verifier. So let's go back to the uh, slide deck, and then I'll talk about a little patterns. Now, what is there in the architecture? Let's start from the bottom. I spoke about trust system. So as verified ID, we offer both blockchain based system as well as non-blockchain based system. So you could use Iron, which is layer 2 over Bitcoin. That's one option available to the customer. Or you can use web. So you can get a did iron identifier or did web identifier, DID web. Remember, DID is decentralized identifier. So when you will switch on the service, you are creating an endpoint on the service on your tenant. It's a managed implementation. Remember the API call that I was showing to you through Postman. So you set up your own request API endpoint. It is a cryptographic operation, so you need key vault. So key vault will be used to store sign in, update, and recovery keys. And key vault will help in signing the request or signing the verified task or signing the issue task. So the bottom layer is something that you manage, like key vault is something you create. When you onboard your verified ID service, you become a part of the multi-tenant service. As a user, I have a wallet. I can build my own wallet as well. As an application owner, I showed you a demo of Woodgrove. So on the onboarding portal you may have, all you are doing is creating that button experience or QR code experience or link experience where when you need to issue a credential, you're making a call to the request API with a payload. And once the user supplies back that credential, you can take data from the credential and apply your business logic. So it's as simple as that. Let me just bring in a pointer just to make sure. So you take data from that credential and then apply your business logic. That could be creating accounts in directory, that could be HR system, LDAP system. So you can see it's so simple as a pattern. Second scenario could be about uh, secure access. Like same flow, you onboarded a service, you took data from your app, credential, and then apply an authorization logic. Like I'll only give you access to this dashboard once you show me that you are 25 and above, or you are a resident of India, or you have completed a specific training. So that data point is coming from the verifiable credential. And thirdly, it could be for um, account reset models, like using a verifiable credential. I can do tasks like reset a password or generate a temporary access pass. So what you're doing, you're taking the data, the claims from the credential, and then using graph calls to kick off a recovery logic. Now, all that I just showed is available on our GitHub repo. So if I bring in my browser, all of it, this is available on our GitHub repo. And I'll share the link as well with all of you so that you can use that. You can start with the Postman directory. You can see there are two collections, the same demo that I showed to you, the client API or the request API and the admin API. You can easily fork the collection and get started. Fork it and then set it up for your environment. And that's the easy way to start in few minutes. You can also build sample applications. So whatever platform that you're comfortable with, you can be a .NET developer, Java developer, Node developer, Python. By the way, I'm not a developer, but I was able to get this running in few seconds by just starting with Postman. That's the collection I submitted. And then you can build sample apps very easily and bring this experience to your model. I'll explain a .NET sample very in a bit. So let's say if I click on the .NET repository, there you can see there are three samples available. 1, 2, and 3. The number one sample is a simple GitHub ASP.NET sample where when you click on this and launch and deploy this sample, you will be able to set up a issuer and a verifier website like this. And you can, when you click on get credential, all you are doing is asking the user to go through a journey to get a credential. So you can easily build this kind of an experience uh, using a sample. Similarly, when I click on verify credential, it is a verifier experience. And I'm just building this experience in my journey. So if I bring back my phone mirroring, let me bring my phone mirroring and do the scan of this QR code. All I'm doing is, as a user, I get a prompt to present a credential and I am selecting which is the right credential. So this one is still valid. So when I click on confirm, click on share, it'll take the credential. So this is a very simple uh, getting started thing that we have set up on our GitHub repo. And there are some advanced samples as well. Like what if the user is already logged into a website using their directory credential? Can I then generate a can I generate an experience where data can be taken from the logged in session cookie like the ID token? And can I also add data from PeopleSoft or a database or maybe user input, like user likes to speak in English language, user likes Indian food. So can I then do a mishmash of taking data from multiple sources? That is the second sample. And then there's a third sample. If you want to integrate this verifiable credential into a B2C journey, like if I show you, we recently did an event. You can easily think of such kind of events where if uh, I hope the test site is up. Otherwise, I'll go to the, let me go to the live site. I hope the live site. Yeah. So you can easily build these kind of experiences and it's a B2C journey. When I click on an event website, when I click on register, usually the event website will allow you to specify your LinkedIn social. Here you can see it's a B2C sign up, sign in journey. In that too, also you can bring in verifiable credential. So let's look at a quick demonstration on the GitHub repo, and then I'll do a quick explanation on the repository. So I mentioned there are four such models available. You can choose. So I like to say this: you can choose your own poison. If you like .NET, please go with the .NET samples. Let me bring in the .NET sample. Let me bring in Visual Studio Code onto my screen share. Yeah. And I'm going to show a quick demonstration. All right. So when you would clone this ASP.NET, let's say one hyphen ASP.NET Core sample, ID token in sample, all you need to remember is you need to set up this sample with three important things. Number one, you need to set up the app settings. That's where you'll specify your tenant specific details. And we have documented this in our README as well. You supply details like client, what the tenant ID. That's your tenant where you have onboarded the verified ID service. Remember, the APIs were authenticated, so you need to use client ID secret. So the client credential flow, your issuer DID and verifier DID. And then you also need to specify the credential URL. Now, where do I get all that data? So when I go to my Azure portal and to onboard this service, I'm already using a tenant which is ready with this setup. But when you click on entra.microsoft.com, let me log into my dev tenant. Yeah, so verified ID is available as an option. So you will onboard go to your verified ID service. I think this one is connected to my production tenant. So let me go to the test tenant. To access this Entra Verified ID blade, you saw that I got a warning on the Microsoft tenant because I don't have the right permissions. To get access to verified ID, you need at least authentication policy administrator permission so that you can uh, onboard verified ID or do any operation. If you're a global admin, then you can do everything, but you need at least authentication policy administrator permission. You will define credentials, you will define the schema under the credential blade. We offer templates like verified employee, and you can see there are other templates that are coming soon in the future. What is there in verified employee? It's like a quick start where you get a black card. You can define the font color, text color, add a logo URL. I can say that I can just see there's a Ninja URL I added, and it's a verified employee card. You will get 8 claims. I cannot modify this because it's a template. If I need only 4 or I need 9 from my directory, then I have to discontinue this and I have to use the custom credential option. So I'll go to credential and I'll say custom credential. So this custom credential allows me to use a JSON template and say I only need first name and last name. And by the way, this is the logo URL. This is how I want the title to show up on the scan when the user scans the card. So I can specify all that details using custom. So you can choose to use a template or you can use your credential. So on our public documentation, if I just open the public documentation, we have given how you can use any of the patterns. Directory based employee, which is the template option. You can use ID token hint to build a mishmash kind of a scenario. Like I want data um, coming from my directory, from a database, or from a API call that is called as ID token hint. ID token could be getting data from any OpenID Connect provider, Azure AD, B2C, Ping, Okta, doesn't matter. If I have a credential, which I was showing, like I showed my true identity credential to get a Woodgrove credential, when I supply VC as an input to get my new VC, that is called presentation attestation. Self-issued means as a user, I am supplying data to a credential so that that data can go into the credential as self-attested. Like I can speak in English or I like Indian food. These are user supply data points. So you can use that model too. There's a question on the chat. Great question. How long a credential would be active? So you, as an admin, you define that as a part of the schema definition. So under rules, you define the expiry of it. So this is 30 days, 259 2000. It's in seconds. Um, this is something you define. Now, the second part of your question is, I'll come in the template verified employee, it is valid for 6 months because it's a template. When you choose custom credentials, you can use any type of expiry. You can say 1 day, you can say 10 minutes, you can also say 5 years.
Okay.
Is there time to live? Oh, Sai, I saw you unmuting. Please ask your question.
No, the same. Yeah, I was saying, I was responding to your answer.
Okay.
Mm, yeah,
Is there a time to live kind of system for reauthentication? So same concept, browser can maintain the cookie. So if you have connected to a tab and you launch a second tab, it can retain your claim and it can give you access. The same concept, it can be used. But if you want that, if you're opening a new tab, the user should be prompted to present their credential again, because it could have happened the admin has revoked the credential in the background, because at that given point of time, the user has become a malicious admin or a malicious user. You can build that experience as well. Whenever a user goes and presents the credential, every time it is checked. Is it an active credential, expired credential, or revoked credential?
got it.
Okay. Now let's quickly go back to Visual VS Code. And I know I have got 5 minutes left, so I'll just do a quick demonstration because I want you all to be running with this sample when you sign off from this session. So clone this sample, specify the app settings, and then you need to define your issuance payload. Like the credentials that you have created, you take the type from your portal. So from the Azure portal, all you're doing is getting the credential type. Let me pick up workplace credential. And you're taking the manifest URL. This is important because this is the definition the user will get. When they scan, actually they're downloading this definition and then they are going through the attestation. Once they complete the attestation, they get the 4 claims like first name, last name, display name, and email from this credential. So you define the type of the card. And if you want to add a pin flow, so you define all this in issuance request config file. When you are building a verifier experience, you define details in presentation request config file. Now, the demo website I showed to you, it is the same thing that you will get when you start building the sample. So this is the way the sample will show up. Now, what is this sample? If I click on F12 browser tools, so that you will see when I click on the get credential button and I say get credential, it makes an authenticated call to the API. This is the same thing I showed to you through Postman. And I got a response. This is the URI response. And actually this QR code is more like a facade. If I take my mouse on it, you can see it's a response. User will scan and it actually would download that manifest URL, go through that logic and get the credential. Similarly for verify, when I click on verify, it is making an authenticated call and you can see the response. It's a QR code. I presented the QR code, and when I supply and scan this QR code, all I'm
Yeah,
doing
Rohit,
is
just I'm sorry to disturb you in between. 3 more minutes to our session. Another speaker is lined up. So if you
sure,
have
sure. I'm
cover,
just finishing. This is my
sure.
last step. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So all I'm doing is I'm just presenting this QR code and you can see the data that is available. So I will leave it to you this at this point. There is a bunch of resources on the deck. Let me launch the. So you can use many scenarios to build around it. Hiring, worker, alumni. You can also use it for secure access training. And there are a bunch of public case studies available. So you can refer the public site link. All I want you to be taking from this session is these bunch of resources. So the demo site that I showed to you, you can easily play with this. And the sample repository is aka.ms/vc sample. And one more time, I would like to conclude by again asking you, please contribute to this cause. I'm sure in our lives we look at such opportunities, so it's a easy thing that we can easily do. So please look at this link and contribute to this cause as well. So I will leave it at that. I know I just got 2 minutes. If there is any last question that anybody wants to ask, please do. You can obviously reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can be connected. I hope it gave you some insights on how you can look at verified ID, what is verified ID,
Yes, Rohit. Yeah. I had a bit of information before, but now I was able to understand a little more better. Thanks for that. Thanks for
Great.
the session.
Amazing. All right. I think I will give my other colleague 1 minute to settle down. So, with that, thank you so much. You all have a lovely day ahead. Enjoy the rest of the sessions and ping me on LinkedIn if you would want to be connected. Take care, everyone. I'll it back to you.
Lalit, do we get these recordings?
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much, Rohit. And I think welcome Praveen on board here. I'm sorry that this session took a little bit more time, and and also for attendees, probably if you want to take some break, 2 minutes.
Sorry, Pavan, if I just spilled over. I thought I had an hour.